Hello and welcome back to Suzuki Talks. As many of you already know, I am a masochist. In fact, I'm so much of a masochist that today I'm going to look at one of the most cringy fucking things I have ever seen in my life. And who would create such a cringy fucking thing other than Madhouse Medhurst? Now, I'm sure many of you are already familiar with Richard Medhurst. He is a particularly vile isolationist and con artist who makes a living denying genocide, defending Assad, and pretending to be a Syrian-born independent journalist. He's actually Austrian, and who hasn't found a murderous dictatorship he doesn't like. Well, a few days ago, Madhouse Medhurst threw his usual whiny temper tantrum on YouTube about former President George W. Bush. And since I'm a sadomasochistic, self-hating pervert, I'm going to be reviewing that today. So, strap yourselves in and let the torture commence.
Man, you know there used to be a time just a few years ago, if you said the name George Bush, you would be met with boos and insults, and now every liberal talk show host is bringing this war criminal on to do a book tour and plug his stupid fucking art.
Oh man. Even for a Richard Medhurst video, this has already gone way off the rails. Of course, he did the "you're a war criminal" meme, not unique to him. A lot of non-interventionists do that. They call anyone who they disagree with war criminals. But anyway, let's get back to the what you're saying about Bush. It's true. George Bush was not the best president. I did not like him. I did not think his presidency was overall a good thing for America. Did he do some things I agreed with? Yeah. Removing Saddam Hussein, invading Afghanistan? Yeah, those were all good. I supported that 100%. I think his economic policy and his environmental policy were ultimately his undoing. I think that is what made him such a bad president. But I think the reason that George Bush's public approval has gone up in recent years is because we just suffered through 4 years of Donald Trump. And that, I think, has really changed a lot of people's perspective on political leaders. Say what you will about George Bush, whether you love him or hate him, he still believed in the institution of American democracy. He still believed in internationalism and interventionism. One can debate whether or not he executed that well, but he still, in a way, had his heart in the right place, at least in foreign policy. Donald Trump never did. Donald Trump was guided by nothing more than self-indulgence. And I think now people are kind of having a wake-up call and seeing like maybe Bush wasn't the worst that we could have gotten. Maybe there are people and ideologies who are worse than Bush. And so that's why I think public perception around George Bush has changed, because America has suffered through somebody who was far, far worse. And I think that maybe now they're saying maybe now they're coming to realize that maybe Bush was not the worst that we could have had. But of course, that's not Richard Medhurst's critique. Richard Medhurst is angry at Bush for overthrowing Saddam and for his interventionism overseas, which coincidentally are the only things I actually liked about the Bush administration. And of course, Richard Medhurst opposed that because he's an isolationist grifter. He's an isolationist moron who doesn't give a shit about innocent people being slaughtered by dictators overseas. He is just a con artist and an overall vile person. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Let's let him continue.
Please welcome President George W. Bush.
Let me tell you something. I couldn't even say the word nuclear.
You forgot the word nuclear after saying Iraq has nuclear weapons 10 million times and starting a war, you motherfucker.
Oh my god, he did the meme again. You know what? I'm not going to pretend like Iraq actually had nuclear weapons. That was faulty data. And you know what? I think that the justification for the invasion of Iraq was a pretty piss-poor one. But in the end, I think it was a net benefit for Iraq and for that region to remove Saddam. And we already knew that Saddam had planned to get nuclear weapons. That's not up for debate. Everyone knew he was trying to get them. We just didn't know if he had them yet. And he did have weapons of mass destruction. Specifically chemical weapons that he was not supposed to have. And I think they found some biological agents, but I'll have to check that again. But, of course, Richard Medhurst doesn't take issue with the rationale for the invasion. He takes issue with the invasion itself. If it was up to Richard Medhurst, Saddam Hussein would still be in power, slaughtering Kurds, slaughtering political dissidents, starving his people, and basically running his country like a gigantic concentration camp. And I think that really provides a window into what kind of person Richard Medhurst and people like him really are. They're not people who actually give a shit about innocent civilians overseas. Have you ever heard Richard Medhurst criticize Assad for his treatment of the Syrian people? No, he doesn't give a shit about that. Dude has a fucking Syrian flag in his bio. He shilled for Assad countless times. This guy doesn't give a damn about innocent civilians overseas. If it's a country that's not the United States and not one of its allies that is massacring innocent people, he will not speak a word against them. It's really that simple.
To just sit there laughing with the head of the most dangerous, corrupt regime in modern history like it's nothing.
Oh my god, what a fucking clown. Yeah, the United States is the most corrupt and dangerous regime in modern history. Yeah, dude, did you forget about China, Russia, Syria, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela? I mean, Jesus Christ. The United States is a representative democracy. We routinely score at the top of freedom indexes and human rights indexes done by NGOs all over the world. The countries you defend routinely score at or near the bottom. So, how do I even respond to such an absurd statement? That might literally be one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. I don't think I'm even 10 seconds into this video. Well, let's keep going.
Did you forget about the Department of Homeland Security? Did you forget about ICE? About the war on terror, the war in Iraq, the weapons of mass destruction, Hurricane Katrina, the mass surveillance, CIA torture, tax cuts, those people being tortured in Abu Ghraib, the prisoners in Guantanamo Bay with their eyes and ears covered in shackles, the babies that are still being born in Fallujah with birth defects, the Iraqi girl with her parents' blood on her dress?
Oh boy, what a cavalcade of nonsense. Let alone half the stuff he's mentioned isn't even remotely tyrannical or corrupt. But also the point about the Iraqi children in Fallujah and the bird children, all that. No, that's not the United States' fault. That's the 80% of the casualties in the Iraq War were by insurgents. Insurgent attacks accounted for 80% of the people who were killed in that war. And I think with the coalition forces, it was less than 20%. And all of that was due to friendly fire. It was collateral damage. It wasn't like we went out of our way to kill civilians. We tried to avoid it. These insurgents, on the other hand, deliberately target civilians. So give me a fucking break, man. We're in there to stop the people who are killing innocent people in Iraq. We're in there to stop these insurgents. You're here to just defend them and whitewash their war crimes and frame the United States for it. Give me a break, man. You don't give a shit about the Iraqi people. You don't give a shit about anyone who isn't your brand of isolationist cretin. Give me a break. Also, he did make a point about Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib and the CIA black sites. It's like, yeah, you know what? That's actually something I probably agree with him on. I do oppose the torture and indefinite detainment without trial of these people. But the thing is, Richard Medhurst isn't bringing that up because he actually cares about that. He's just trying to make the United States look bad. No, because he doesn't bring up any of the war crimes done by the regimes he defends. Me, on the other hand, I will call out inhumane practices wherever I see them and whoever is perpetrating them. I am 100% opposed to torture of detainees in Guantanamo. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. Richard Medhurst, on the other hand, again, he doesn't care about that. His primary goal is to make the United States look bad. And you know what? In recent years, we've tried to shift away from doing that kind of stuff. Abu Ghraib is closed down. Guantanamo is probably going to be closed down under the Biden administration. We have to see. I can't make any promises on that. But given that Obama tried to shut it down, I think Biden will try to shut it down as well. But anyway, just know this. If Richard Medhurst is actually criticizing a legitimate flaw with the United States, it's not because he actually cares about that. It's really it's just part of the grift. When you look at what people like Richard Medhurst say and what kind of narrative they're trying to paint and what kind of people they choose to defend, you'll realize that when he does stuff like this, it is for the sole purpose of selling his grift. Grifters will do this. They always do this. They will hijack populist talking points, things that sound good to people, and they will hijack those for their own agenda. And in Richard Medhurst's case, it is a particularly vile agenda.
They destroyed Iraq. They destroyed Afghanistan. They destroyed millions of lives. Julian Assange is in jail right now for exposing Bush's wars. The entire region is upside down because of Bush, Cheney, and Rumsfeld. I cannot believe I have to sit here and remind you of this.
Oh my God. No, Richard. We saved Afghanistan. Do you have any idea what Afghanistan was like under the Taliban? Do you have any fucking idea? It was one of the most oppressive and barbaric regimes in human history. And yes, I mean it, human history. The 40% of women in Afghanistan under the Taliban would die while giving birth. 1 out of every 3 children would die before the age of 8 because of malnutrition. The Taliban committed genocide against ethnic minorities and religious minorities. They exerted the strictest form of Sharia law that I think that region has ever seen. They prevented women from working. Their infrastructure was abysmal. Famine was rampant, and the government didn't give a shit. Everyday basic freedoms were deprived from civilians. It was run basically like a giant slave camp. We gave that country a fighting chance to survive. Our intervention saved countless lives in Afghanistan. And while we still have a long way to go, I think that our intervention will prove in the long term to be one of the better things that this country has done. It will be remembered on the right side of history. And you, people like you, will be remembered on the wrong side. Fuck you for wanting to deprive the Afghan people of a fighting chance to survive. Fuck you for wanting the people who are oppressing them and starving them and murdering them to remain in power. And the same thing goes for Iraq. Now, I think that the justification for Iraq was kind of shoddy. I think that our invasion could have been planned better, with a better exit strategy. But I think the same thing applies. I think Iraq will be better off in the long term without Saddam. We can already see that happening. Iraqi civilians' life expectancy has gone up. They now score higher on human rights indexes than they did under Saddam. I'm not going to pretend the job is done. Iraq still has a long way to go. They still are under the yoke of authoritarianism, and I think it's going to be a while before that changes. But I think, as we did in Afghanistan, we gave Iraq a fighting chance to survive. We gave their people a fighting chance to become free. And even though we have a long way to go, progress is happening. And people like you are not fucking helping. People like you want to go back to a time when Iraq was controlled by a genocidal tyrant, a madman who used chemical weapons on civilians, invaded and attacked neighboring countries without provocation, and sponsored foreign terrorist organizations. People like you are appalling. They are absolutely appalling, and I hope to God that people like you never get into a position of power.
This is not about one show. This is a trend. For years now, these shitlibs are trying to shove these neocons down our throats like Colin Powell and Bill Kristol for their Trump derangement syndrome. Bush is 1,000,000 times worse than Trump. This is not a debate.
You have got to be fucking kidding me. Bush is 1,000,000 times worse than Trump? Trump was an authoritarian madman. He was destroying our democratic institutions. He tried to overturn a free and fair election. He had his supporters storm the Capitol of the United States in an attempt to overturn a free and fair election. He tried to have his people murder political opponents that day. Safe to say, I think Trump is not only the worst president we've ever had, he is the most dangerous president we've ever had. And I think he's the most dangerous president we will ever have. I honestly cannot imagine somebody worse than Trump in office. Maybe you, but that's beside the point. Bush, I'm no fan of Bush, but Richard Medhurst is kind of forcing me to defend him. George Bush is infinitely better than Donald Trump. I would take Bush 1,000,000 times over Donald Trump. I would vote for Bush 1,000,000 times before I'd ever vote for Donald Trump. And I think the fact that Richard Medhurst thinks that Trump is better, 1,000,000 times better than Bush, really shows what kind of person Richard Medhurst is. He is somebody who doesn't care about authoritarianism, even when it's in his own fucking backyard. He doesn't care at all about human rights. He doesn't care at all about individual liberties. This guy is atrocious. He is a horrible person, an absolutely atrocious and horrible person. God help us all. God help us all.
And if you allow them to do it with the devil, with Bush, they will do it with anyone. Liberals love having Bush on their show because they are two birds of the same feather. They are all neocons and American exceptionalists and servants of corporate America.
Oh, I wish all liberals were neocons and American exceptionalists. We would have a based-ass society if that was the case. I wish neocons had more representation in the political establishment, I guess, for lack of a better term. I hate using that word. And corporate America. Oh, that's another meme. Yeah, anything that Richard Medhurst doesn't like is also corporate. It's not just war criminal, it's also corporate.
And I am fucking pissed off at their crimes against humanity and the people that they have hurt. So no goddamn way I'm letting them rehabilitate George Bush or Tony Blair. These people need to be shamed into fucking oblivion for sitting there and laughing and joking with these international mass murderers and war criminals. Fuck them and fuck George Bush.
You know, I mentioned in my last video on Richard Medhurst that he projects more than anyone else I've ever seen. This is further proof of that. Richard Medhurst is whining about international mass murderers and war criminals while defending people like the Taliban, like Saddam Hussein, like Assad, like Gaddafi, and countless other tyrants who are anti-American. This guy is a joke. This guy is an absolute joke. I cannot believe that people actually take this guy seriously. That is a sad indictment of American political discourse. Because if people like Richard Medhurst are the future of American politics, then we're fucked. We're absolutely 100% fucked. And we will have it coming to. We will have it coming. Anyway, the video's over. Thank God. I had to pick a short one because I couldn't make it through any one that was any longer. That's the problem with Richard Medhurst. He can get so much crap out in so little time. But you know what? I had to do this. I had to watch him so that you wouldn't have to. Because God help us if these people actually get into positions of power. I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that they don't get any more influence in political discourse or in positions of power. I'm doing my very best to ensure that doesn't happen. Well, I'm sure Richard Medhurst and his idiot fanboys will probably find this video and swarm it with angry comments calling me a warmonger or war criminal and dislikes, because every video I make on interventionism gets ratioed to hell because his fanboys have nothing other to do except bend over backwards for him and the dictators he defends. So yeah, I'm expecting this video to get ratioed. I'm expecting a lot of angry, whiny comments. So be it. I'll take that any day, as long as I get to dunk on this fucking idiot and the abhorrent policies that he represents. I will take that any day.